guys for the next 5 to 10 years, whatever that is, and compete with Josh Allen year over year. It seems like Mac Jones is kind of the favorite for that among the three right now. But when you look at the current landscape of the AFC East, like where, as a Pats guy, like where do the Pats realistically stack up based on what they did in the draft and free agency?
Oh, man, good question. Yeah, I mean, just on the leap for a second, we've never seen someone make the type of improvements that Josh Allen has made year to year. And that is just, I think it's kind of like a one-on-one situation. So expecting Mac Jones and Zach Wilson and Tua to suddenly be MVP contenders, this coming season is a little bit unrealistic, but can they get their team to the playoffs? Yeah, absolutely. Because we saw Mac Jones do it last year as a rookie. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to end up being a great player, but Mac Jones is going to be a really good player for a long time. But specifically to the and probably the best quarterback in that draft class, even though I personally wanted Justin Fields in the draft, just because it was something different. We talked about this on our show a lot. Like I get a lot of grief because I called Mac Jones a minivan, and I wanted a sports car.
Yeah.
And then Rich was like quick to point out, yeah, well, the minivan took you to 6 Super Bowls. I know, I get it, but I watched that for 20 years and I just wanted something different. It's kind of like a midlife crisis where suddenly you just buy yourself a sports car and like, yeah, the sports car would have been awesome and I would have really enjoyed it. And I think that's who Justin Fields is. So it's
also why like Pat fans love Cam, right? Like they wanted Cam to work out so well because it was completely different.
Awesome. Yeah. And I loved Cam coming out of the draft and I loved him at Carolina and I wanted him to be awesome for us. It just didn't work out. So when I look at the AFC East, I think you're right. Like top to bottom, it's going to be a really interesting division because you have this team that is the Super Bowl favorite. And then you have 3 other teams who are all kind of in the same spot.
Where you could like make the case where all of them win 9 or 10 games.
Absolutely. You could make the case that they all make the playoffs, or you can make the case that they all kind of just fall back. I mean, you look at the Dolphins, they end the year on an 8-game winning streak, right? You got the Jets who have so many great, promising, potential young players with a quarterback that people loved coming out of the draft, the consensus number 2 pick. He put on some weight. He's beefy. He's got a huge arm. They draft the number 1 running back out of the draft, Breece Hall. They already had a guy, Michael Carter, who had a great year. They have young, good receivers, and they have a new not a new coach, but a coach that is exciting and knows what he's doing. You got a front office that know what they're doing. Like I sit with a Jets fan every single day. He has not been this excited about his team in forever. And that's kind of scary because I'm like, I give him a bunch of, you're just a Jets fan. But then I look at the run, I'm just like, wow, this team could really be good.
I mean, you flipped. Denzel Mims he's now like number 5 on the wide receiver depth chart. Like they flipped that wide receiver room. They flipped. Like there's just talent everywhere.
Everywhere on the Jets. And that's so scary. And then I look at New England and we're just kind of like, we're just plugging along. We're like a little engine that could. We're just kind of doing our thing. But grabbing Devontae Parker, sneaky good. Really good running backs like Ramondre Stevenson could go on a team and be a number 1 guy. And now you pair him up with Damian Harris. You still got James White. How much is he going to play? Not sure. But you still got the 2 tight ends. And then Jacoby Myers. There's like, I don't know. And then you see the reports coming out of New England that Mac Jones is suddenly this dog and he's this leadership. He's lost kind of the baby fat that kind of made famous from, that one picture of him smoking the cigar at Alabama a few years ago. So I'm super psyched as a Pats fan. I mean, I've completely done a 180 on Mac Jones. While I wasn't that hype on draft day, I watched what he did last year as a rookie. I read everything about what he's been doing this offseason. I hear what the players are saying. I think that's more important than anything. Like writers and guys who cover the team, they can say whatever they want. But when it's coming from the players who are on the field and in the locker room and are excited about this guy, as a fan, you have to be excited. That has to get you going because you think, wow, okay, we go from the greatest quarterback of all time. And then we have, a bridge year where we don't really know what's going to happen. It was the COVID year too. So that was kind of jacked up. And then you're like, man, are we just going to slip back into mediocrity? Are we going to be one of these other teams? Are we going to be just like everybody else now? And then Mac Jones does what he does. And you're like, maybe not, maybe not. Maybe we can be at the top, a perennial playoff team with this kid for a long time and maybe, get our way to a Super Bowl like the Bengals did last year. Guys who make that year 2 leap, look no further than Joe Burrow, man.
Right.
That guy did it.
And one of these guys is probably going to do it. Year 3 for Tua, year 2 for Zach, or year 2 for Mac. Like one of these guys, I just want to, you're going to look back at it, it's just going to be like December, January, and you're like, whoa, one of these 3 are going to be 12 to 13 wins. And you're like, okay, they're a contender. And it just is going to catch everybody by surprise.
Yeah. And I think if you're asking me, like, just put my team aside, it's really set up for Miami. And like, it's kind of the biggest year of Tua's football life coming up. Think about it. You got a new coach, Mike McDaniel. This guy, we saw what he did in San Francisco. We saw what he did for their run game and their offense. And then you see the type of speed and talent that they're putting around Tua down there, man. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill now, and Mostert came over, and like they are just Gesicki is I would snag him in fantasy if you have a chance to. You see the type of weapons that are going to be surrounding this guy. It's like, all right, bro, this is it. Like, this is it for you, man. Like, you're going to do it. Now's the time. It's year 3. You are healthy. Like, I just wish the Dolphins social media team would do Tua a little more favors, Like, they remember they put out that video of him throwing the bomb to Tua.
Yeah.
To Cheetah, and it was wobbly pass. It was behind him. It wasn't in stride, and they were just like bomb. Like, it was awesome. Like, do your man some favors. Like, this is a guy who he hasn't been great for a long time. Like, really since his early years at Bama. Like, help him out. But I think if anyone's going to really make a leap like that, it's going to be him, just because of what's around him and the coach. I mean, in New England, they don't even know who's calling the plays. Like,
Matt Patricia, who is it?
We don't even know who the offensitive coordinator is. Like, is it the guy who got fired in Detroit, or is it the guy who got fired in New York? Like, which one? You let
they take turns. Whoever's
yeah. So anyway, I think if there's one, it's really on Miami. I think they're weirdly, I think they're the team with the most pressure on them in the division. I think Buffalo could just roll the ball out and win 11 games and take the division, but it's kind of up to these other 3 teams as to where they're going to shake out. I kind of bring this up all the time. When you look at the NFL playoffs, there's 50% turnover every single year. Right. And so the Pats were one of those 7 teams in the AFC to make it last year. And when you look at, which 3 or 4 aren't going to make it, man, they're a prime candidate. So I'm a little worried as a Pats fan, even though I'm super psyched for Mac Jones's future, because I think he's awesome. And I think the run game and the defense is good enough to kind of keep them in most games. But who's got the most upside? 100% it's Miami.
That's interesting. I would still probably say the most upside is New York. I think if everything goes right, just because of both sides of the ball now and where they're at with their tackle spot and where they're at with, like, if Zach Wilson is just, you look at it, I'm a big Elijah Moore guy. I think Breece Hall will obviously be really good for them early on. I love the Sauce Gardner pick. Like, you just look up and down this list and you're like, man, it's funny too. Like, if you just take out Zach Wilson, you put Mac Jones on the Jets, because remember, there is a San Francisco connection with New York, where Robert Saleh obviously worked under Kyle Shanahan as the DC, and Kyle obviously loved Mac Jones too. It's like, if you have your Jimmy Garoppolo type, the Mac Jones type in New York with this group, with the not the highest ceiling, like Zach Wilson still has a higher ceiling than Mac Jones, but the floor is so much higher for Mac than Zach that there's no question, I think, for a lot of people that they're like, oh yeah, he'll find a way to get the ball to everybody he needs to. Mac will get to Elijah a little bit. He'll feed C.J. Uzomah, who also came over from Cincinnati.
That's a big move. Yeah, that's a big move.
So they just don't really have any weaknesses. Like, Joe Douglas has completely flipped this, but it's also like, I just fall back on, I think I just trust Mac the most of the 3. Like, I really don't. I just trust Mac Jones. I think he's just a really, really good player that, I mean, look, He ruined one of my Thursday nights this past fall. Like, I don't know if you remember that game against the Falcons on Thursday this past year.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst football games I've ever had to sit through. And my notes, like I almost just started writing in my notes, like as I take notes for all my games. I don't know if you do that, but I'm just jotting down. I'm like, oh, another Mac 5-yard out, another Mac curl. Like, it's just, they would refuse to take any chances. It was field goals all over the place.
Yeah.
The Falcons barely crossed the 50.
Well, I mean, that's what you do with a rookie quarterback.
Oh my God, I hated it so much. That was the worst football game I've ever sat through.
And
I think it might be.
I mean, I guess you do have a good point. Like, if you just look on paper, rosters, how they've been constructed, the Jets probably have more talent than the Pats and Dolphins, but massive question mark.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson, because we just haven't seen him do it. He had a lot of growing pains as a rookie that Mac Jones did not have. And that was probably due to a lot of coaching. You know, Josh McDaniels and Bill obviously did a great job of not putting Mac. I mean, look, that game in Buffalo, he threw it twice, right? 3 times. And they won at Buffalo in that crazy windstorm BS. So, look, I mean, obviously we know Zach Wilson has, you know, tremendous wow and, you know, explosive factor potential with him. And so he just has to do it. He just has to kind of go out and do it. And, you know, reports and out of the mini camps are he's been a little bit inaccurate or whatever. But look, that only just comes with reps. I mean, Josh Allen was 50% at Wyoming.
Yeah.
And now he's MVP favorite on the Super Bowl favorite in 4 years. So, you know, it'll come for Zach Wilson. He's going to have his moments and he's going to do dumb stuff because that's what young quarterbacks do.
We'll see. Now that you've had a couple months to reflect, does the draft feel better? Like the Cole Strange pick feel better? Because they got killed. Like everyone universally killed the Pats draft. Like everyone killed it. They're all like, we understand that Cole Strange is going to be a great Pat for the next 10 to 15 years. Like we all understand he's a plug and play guy.
Right.
And look, shout out to UT Chattanooga, go Mocs. But I don't know. Like now that you've had some time, do you feel better about what Belichick did?
You know, it's like we've been operating under this mantra for so long, you know, and Bill we trust. But Bill has kind of whiffed in the last, I don't know, 5-6 years. He's kind of had some big misses. So you're sitting there and you're like, what are we gonna do? Let's go after it. You know, there was a dude from Utah I wanted, Nakobe Dean I thought would have been awesome. And it's just like we need an impact guy on defense because like we don't know if Hightower's coming back. Seems like he's not. And you know, we don't know if who's the other dude the athletic guy they had and then went back to Cleveland and then came back. I'm blanking on his name.
I'm not sure off the top of my head either.
Is he gonna come back? And it's just like who? Hold on, let me just quick check my notes real quick. Who is this guy? Like from where? All right. Well, if Bill knows, I mean, he probably was at his pro day. I'm sure he watched, you know, every game he's ever played. I guess he knows. But
Mac Wilson, by the way.
Say that again.
Mac Wilson, was that who you're thinking of?
Oh no, I'm blanking on his name. We was on the Pats for a while, and then he left. Super athletic guy, and then he went to Cleveland, and then we got him back. And then and it's just like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But when you think about this dude, obviously I made the joke on draft night. It's going to be cool to be at Cole Strange's, you know, 2046 Hall of Fame induction. Like this guy, you know, he could be the next great lineman. Nobody has any idea. He's an older rookie. And so, I mean, I've really talked myself into it because they really needed offensive line help. And so it was one of the areas of need. You just thought that it would be kind of a sexier pick.
Yeah.
But it's always a wait and see with these draft picks, but you know, I kind of do it now with kind of in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, should Bill still be the GM? Like, I kind of feel like is lightning going to strike me if I say this? Cause that's not what I would have done. Obviously he knows more than me, but you know, again,
you just write it out to the end.
It's exactly. It's, you know, in a weird way, it's kind of like the Mac Jones thing. It's like, it's not sexy at all. Like nothing about it is like in bright lights. And you know, Cole Strange didn't have a necklace with Strange on it like sauce, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, nothing about that guy is, you know, gets you super excited, but you when you watch him play and he doesn't give up a sack this year, you're like, cool. That's why we drafted that guy. Mm-hmm. So, it's just kind of a wait and see and hope it works out. And because
isn't the whole point like supposed to?
The whole draft is a crapshoot. You know what I mean?
Yes, and it's like there's gonna be like it's just funny to kill that pick and also kind of understand that like okay, we're gonna kill this pick, bad value. They could have gotten him later, whatever. And then you go through your who's most likely to stick and to be one of the best players at that spot going forward. And it's like everyone would put Cole Strange in like the top 5 non-bust potential in New England. It's like the majority of these picks are not going to work out. And you're like understanding that this pick's probably going to work out in New England. So can you really kill a pick that you kind of just make because you're like, we'll plug him in and he'll be fine and he'll be great for a long time and a multi-time All-Pro? It's like, I don't think you can kill that. I understand like the value chart for that, but
exactly.
I don't think you can kill it if you also expect him to be a really good player for years.
Right. And I felt even bad like kind of going on the air the next day and kind of like making a snide remarks about it because he obviously super psyched to be you're on the Patriots, bro. Like
right.
Obviously it's the greatest day of his life. And, people in New England are up here going, what was that? He thinks he's Division II FC. Like, why is he even out there? Like, I mean, come on, man. Like, let's cut these kids some slack and like, let's watch them actually play football first and see how it works before, it's one of those things like draft grades are the stupidest things ever because like, you really don't know how good these guys are for 3 or 4 years afterwards. But
I'll tell you, Kevin Harris in the 6th round is going to be your next guy. Like I watched him a lot at South Carolina. Like that's one, if for folks who did not watch college football, it's like Kevin Harris is going to be a pat for a long time and just be a pain in the ass. Like that dude he was built for New England.
Yeah. And as much as I hate like draft grades and all that stuff, like the Jets had the most amazing draft and it's like, we just took who? And the Jets just got 3 top 5 picks in the first round, and you're just like, what? Like, come on, man.
But you also just look at this defense, and I just don't see like they obviously beef up more in the secondary, but you look at it, I don't really see any glaring weak. Like this should be a top 10 defensive DVOA team again next year, and if Mac Jones is a little bit better, it's like they're a playoff team again. Like they're a high floor team still. Like I don't think that's going anywhere.
Yep, high floor team. I mean, really tough schedule this year. It's one of those things like they could be. I really have to get used to the 17 games. I was about to say 7 and 9. Like they could be. The window is 7 and 10 or 11 and 6. It's like it's tight. They're not going to be on the 4-win to 11-win spectrum. They're either going to be 500 or 2 or 3 games over. And I think that's totally realistic. Kind of.
You're back in the Bledsoe era.
Based where you're at. Yeah, I think so. Which, by the way, got to a Super Bowl. So, it's just going to be one of those things where it's not going to be like it'll never be like the old days where you're just like, oh, we're going 13-3 and, 14-2 and everyone else can deal with it. We're probably going to the Super Bowl and like, that's going to be awesome. Those days will never come again, but just to be in I think we can make the playoffs. Like that's great because so many teams year in and year out, fan bases don't get to feel that way or think that, like being a Lions fan has to be the worst. Sorry. I don't know why I just Detroit astray there, but you know what I mean? Like what is their up to? Like, oh man, I hope we go 6-11 this year.
The culture they're building. That's my favorite. It's like when you're bad, it's like the culture we're building. It's really great. We're learning how this works. I mean, he's a dark horse for first coach fired because I think
you think Campbell's a dark horse.
So when you bet on 34 games of Jared Goff in 2021 and 2022, like you're just putting yourself in a position where every team has a quarterback just about, and you're one of the few that don't. And this is still a TV sport. It's still we need butts and seats. And if this offense is still bad and you haven't taken a quarterback in back-to-back years and there's no young, exciting quarterback to go with the culture that you're building, and it's fun to be in close games, but what's not fun is to not show that offensive progress and to just win or lose. There's a difference between being fun and going 4-13, and there's a complete difference going 5-11 or like even 7-10, and it just being a slog. I don't know. I think it's bad.
Played hard. I think they play hard for him, which I think matters and kind of buys you a little bit of extra time. I mean, I think Matt Rule's kind of first up to get
I
fired.
think he is the betting favorite. Yeah.
Oh, is he the betting favorite?
Yeah.
I haven't looked at those yet. But yeah.
I think it's him, one, McCarthy too.
Yeah. I mean, look, the thing is like everyone knows Sean Payton's going to be the Cowboys coach in 2023. So like, why are we?
Oh, I think it's Dan Quinn. I think they're just waiting for Quinn.
Around? Why are we waiting around? I mean,
I don't know if Peyton comes back, man.
He is 1,000% coaching in the NFL in 2020.
Do you think so? Yeah, I think a lot of these guys when they get out, man. My theory too is just I think a lot of these guys like McVay's not going to be coaching in his 40s and 50s. Like I think a lot of these dudes want to get their rings, really go balls to the wall, and then they're like, all right, this life balance does not work. It takes too much. I'm out. Like this is going to be You're not going to see a lot of Belichick's of the world where you just last for years and years, and the Andy Reid types where I don't know. I just think it's more and more responsibility.
Sean Payton was going to be the Dolphins coach this year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that was a Tom Brady and maybe an ownership stake or whatever. Wasn't there all kinds of other things going involved?
I believe.